Welcome to the podcast, Eye for Talent, the show where we've got an eye for talent. I'm your host, Dylan, aka DJ Cereal Sauce. I'm a YouTube content creator, Twitch streamer, producer, voice actor. What else? Let me think of my list. No, that's probably it. If I'm wrong, there's some links in the description. And joining me is my good friend Mariah, who has absolutely broken the rule that I set out, except she didn't break it. I broke it for myself. Typically, I talk to people who are very hobbyists, I guess. They're talented, they have hobbies and whatever. And in this case, this is no different. She's an artist and also used to be a model for what the hell was that company? Made the gothic jewelry or something?
It's multiple companies.
Well, yeah, I guess I should say multiple companies. That was the only one that I could think of. But I do care about all that shit, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for what I think is the most interesting and novel thing that's happened recently, which is she actually went on a trip to Israel. And I guess before we really get too deep into it, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was the whole thing?
Oh, solid 10. It was really both a good distraction and, I guess, eye-opener for what goes on in other countries.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've got another episode planned with somebody who also traveled to a foreign country recently, and I imagine the thought process is kind of the same. Mm-hmm. But I will admit, I do have one question in here that kind of presupposed that you have been to other countries multiple times, and that was kind of ignorant for me to assume.
I've been to Germany before, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that works. Cool. That's all right. Cool. So it's not as off as I thought. That's. We're in a good state. We're in a good state for that. As a result of the fact that this is kind of also supposed to be kind of a riff, like last week's episode, I don't really have typically, just so you're aware, I usually have 12 or 13 questions on here because I'm really trying to get into the personality of the person I'm talking to, how their workflow looks for doing whatever they need to do, how much money they've spent to get to where they are now, various things like that. And with this, it's kind of just I have only talked to one other person in a at least a semi-long amount of detail about a foreign country they visited recently. Well, it wasn't recent, actually. This guy probably visited 10 years ago. He was in China for a year so he could teach English to Chinese students. But the majority of that conversation was him telling me about the culture of being in China and being in what some would consider to be a smaller town of China, which even being a smaller town, it still has fucking 15 million people in it. So shouts out to that. So yeah, that's I've officially broken my own rule of just finding people who are talented in things. I still find the people who are talented. That's just sometimes not where the conversation goes. And so
how dare you break your own rule?
Yeah, I mean, Wait, hold on, because when I've been making posts on TikTok about this, and I've described it as the podcast where I scour the internet far and wide looking for people who do cool shit. Mm-hmm. But this is the podcast where we have an eye for talent is just shorter and makes more sense. So we'll switch back and forth, but I don't know. What's funny? I also had to Google what language they speak in Israel because I was like, I don't know. And then I was as soon as I hit enter, I was like, oh wait, yeah, no, I know what it is. And then Google was they speak Hebrew over there primarily, and I was like, all right, cool, good to know. But yeah, you said your trip was a 10 out of 10, so we probably should actually get into why. So I'll just start by asking, what were you even going there for in the first place? Why is that the country that was chosen? And what did you and or your family hope to gain out of this trip?
So my family is particularly religious. So what they wanted to do is they went to all the historical and biblical areas of attraction. So Jerusalem, Bethlehem, where you see a lot of people in the Bible did signs and wonders. It's where most of the, disciples went around, did their ministry, as well as learning more about the land in a historical, not just religious, but historical manner. How people lived, because obviously it's a very, desert type biome. I mean, just being there, it was horribly hot all the time with limited water supply. We already had a few people get sick on the bus because it was so hot. So just learning how the people didn't die of dehydration was a feat in itself. But we went all across Israel from Tel Aviv to, again, the places I had already mentioned. We got to see the more modern day of how people live, what their businesses were. In the heart of Bethlehem, Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people all live in harmony. It was incredible to see. They all went to each other's businesses. They all communicated with each other perfectly. It was a weird circle of peace in that area.
Huh. That's immediately that strikes me with two interesting things. The first one being just the amount of actual religious cohesion. Not cohesion is not the right word. Co-inhabitants, I guess. Where they're just like I think Peter was telling me about this once, that there is like a small island that is 50-50, one religion and another one. One of them can't eat one specific type of food, and the other one can't eat a different specific kind of food. And so a restaurant chain started there that was serving a food that both of them could have, or something. And so it's crazy to think that just in certain areas, especially because like people think of Israel as like they think of it as either an incredibly hostile land or an incredibly peaceful land. And so to see that with the three religious examples you just gave, with one of them definitely being deemed more aggressive and violent than the other one, it's almost like it's a stereotype and it's not real.
Exactly.
And you come to find that out when you're going to a place that is at least, they probably aren't considered the majority, but they're considered less of a minority, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, no, on one of the places, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. One of the places, because with the tour that we had scheduled, my family had scheduled, it has already predestined places. So I got to go to ruins. I got to go to King Harold during the time of, I'll remember him later. I got to go to his summer palace. I got to go to his winter palace. But in doing so, obviously, when you are gone all day, you have to find places to eat. You have to find places if you want souvenirs to shop. So the tour that I was on, my family, obviously religious, chose the Christian tour, which was led by a Jewish man. Let that sink in just let that sink in for
How did that, now hold on, now, wait a minute. Who let that happen? There's like a clear lack of communication there. They're like, you had one fucking job.
It was like actually the best tour guide I have ever had. He went into incredible detail. But the point, excuse me, I have ADHD. The point I was trying to make was we had to have places to go stop to eat lunch, because that's the only time we weren't at the hotel for breakfast and dinner. And one of the restaurants we went to, he had a Muslim friend that welcomed us, fed us immensely with just the most rich food you could ever imagine. He treated us as if we were family. So right there, it's, even if you aren't stereotypical, it's very much out of the norm of what we usually hear about Muslims. I mean, that was the most family I've ever felt with a random stranger in my life.
I'm glad you didn't say that was the most family I had felt ever, because then I would have had to get a little sad, like obligatorily. I'd be like, well, sucks.
I can't depress the audience just yet. Got to give it time,
No, well, hold on. Have we had anything depressing go on in the last few episodes yet? No, I mean, the last one was a little bit, was like, it had some potentially tenuous themes about like mental health and like miscellaneous things. That was a fun time. So far, I think we're how many episodes are we on? 13? We're 13 for 13 right now on not making people sad. We're chilling. So, but no, the other thing that I was going to say is, this is a long-winded way to get to this. So there's a video on the YouTube channel that me and my friends run. Nothing is anything. I've brought it up a few times. And in one of those videos, I was playing Elden Ring while Peter, who you've seen on this podcast before, was commentating. And I was talking about how I kept getting ads, because every once in a while what'll happen is YouTube will give me ads around a certain season of the year that'll be like, come travel to this country. And for the record, the country they were talking about was Israel. They were telling me to travel to Tel Aviv, but in the video I said, I keep getting these Hotel Trivago style ads telling me to like travel to Saudi Arabia. And he was like, why Saudi Arabia? And I was like, you know what? I don't think that's the right country. I might have messed up. And so I'm glad you mentioned Tel Aviv specifically, because
that's exactly
that was
where
like
I landed in. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I feel like I've heard stuff about the main airport for Israel being in Tel Aviv, but I don't know if that's true, and I don't really have a way to fact check that.
I was there and I can't even tell you if that's true.
Fair. Hold on. How big is Israel as a country? How
Not
big is
very.
Israel? Yeah, fair enough. I'm wondering if they'll give me some like weird American equivocation of how big this country is. Oh, it's 8,550 miles squared. Oh, wow. Okay. So that means that the state of Utah, which I reside in, is literally 10 times that size.
Yes.
So we're talking like a sliver, like literally the size of like a big town,
Yeah.
probably.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Wild. Cool. All right. Okay, this is the question that was actually specific to. This is the question that where I had to preface. I was like, I don't know how many different countries you've actually been to, or if this is your first time traveling internationally. But I guess this is a question overarching the whole thing, which is, in your experience, how much do I just flicked my fucking computer screen? How do general international flights differ from domestic flights? Like, what are the differences that you notice, both being at a home airport versus, and then also the differences you notice between the airports of the states you'd be traveling to, or the airports of, in this case, Tel Aviv, or wherever the airport is in Germany?
So when it comes to international travel, it really, one, depends on the type of plane, or I should say like airline you're booking with. Because that also actually determines the type of people that you're going to be around. Funnily enough, the plane that we chose, most international travel, what I do like is that you're provided, blankets, food, like, what do you want to, entertainment. It's just the entire boatload of what would be on like because I was on a 13-hour flight,
Yeah,
not
that'll
even
do it.
including, yeah, not even including the layovers. But what you've noticed with the American airline is that you have where you need to board, you have your security check, all of that. And you kind of know where everything is. You kind of know what to expect at a home airport, where you need to go, etc., etc. When going through customs of another, what do you want to call it, airline, international airline, I kind of knew what to expect, where I did my best to like look around, read signs in case I like missed anything, like how much liquid is allowed in another country when you're going through security. I had someone, because it wasn't just my family, we were with a humongous group of family friends, church friends, etc., people that I did not know, really didn't need to know at the time, didn't care to either. But what I guess stuck out to me is that, especially us as Americans, when you go to international travel, you cannot have the same expectations you would at a home airport. For example, I kept all my liquids, like not in my carry-on. I kept that in my checked baggage that I wouldn't see until I got off the airplane and collected it, for a reason. Because I don't know the recommendations or the requirements in another country, such as Germany. Because how many like milliliters are allowed in the States is probably not the same in Germany and or Israel and or London, which I landed in London first before going to Tel Aviv. And I was right, because this woman who was in our group started complaining to the country we had just landed in. So not America. No. We had landed in London, and she had the audacity to tell the people, well, how come you didn't tell us you guys don't allow this type of milliliter liquid, and yet the States do? And I turned around and looked at her and was like, I don't know you, and now I really don't want to. We are in a whole other country, lady. I didn't know her time at the time, so she's lady to me, and still is lady to me.
Will be referenced as lady.
We're in a whole other country, and you're going to ask them why they have the set laws they do for foreigners coming into their country.
You go up to like the what the hell is even like I don't know, like the British Parliament, and you're just like, why?
No.
They're like, you are not from here. None of your goddamn business.
I was about to say, no, the security guard, airline guard guy looked at me and kind of like motioned with his hand. Why are you not listening to your own American person calling you out on your bullshit? Because I looked at her like, how many neurons are you missing to ask someone this question? Just throw away what they're not allowing in this terminal right now. Would you rather fly home or just get rid of it and buy it at a cheap place somewhere else instead of being a Karen and making a scene? Because at this point, I'm just now embarrassed to be grouped in with these people.
You walk up to the guy, you're like, hey, can I, you're like, my bag is cool. Like, you can check it. But
I was
like,
about to
once
say,
you've checked it, you're like, can I like
I
step out of
was,
here?
I don't want to say I was smart. I'm not going to pat my back like that. But when, again, doing international travel, I always pack light. I always pack something. I do not care if it goes missing, if it goes stolen. Obviously, my passport is a different story. However, other than that, other than the important crap that I keep on my person at all times, it really shouldn't be rocket science. So the fact that I had that interaction when I really shouldn't have, oh, it just hurts me.
It's like, I'm not smart, but I'm not stupid.
Exactly. But then again, I felt better when I saw a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, so.
Yeah, that's cool. Shouts out to Gordon Ramsay, who's
It
definitely going to hear
also,
this.
oh, I had a really, what do you want to call it? Just wholesome interaction with one of the international checkers, just because I was already tired. I was already really done with the group, as, you could tell with how they were acting in another damn country. And I had these earrings in my pocket that were hurting my ears because they gave you earbuds on the plane because it's such a long ride. They're just like, here, you're suffering, take these. There's probably screaming kids on this plane. Listen to some music that we have for you. So I had taken my earrings out and they were metal. So I let the person know beforehand, hey, I've got this in my pocket. And the poor thing, she looked so tired. She's like, I have to wand you down anyways. I'm like, that's fine. I'm in another country. You are more than allowed to do so.
You hold on. You better not have said those exact words verbatim to that lady. As TSA
No!
agent, I'd be like, shut the hell up.
Absolutely. No, I didn't. No, just I'm like, all right, just letting you know I have this. And when she was done, I looked at her. I'm like, oh, by the way, thank you for what you do. And this poor girl started tearing up, and I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go. I did not mean to make you cry.
Like,
But
I
it
ain't mean to
just
do all that slime.
it just kind of opened my eyes to how much they must deal with every day as an international worker.
Yeah, because the way that I think about it is like, I don't like, I have no stats to back this up, but based off of pure intuition, a part of me tells me that depending on the country you go to, there's a higher likelihood of the destination country having more foreigners from the US than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or it's that American Airlines, not to be confused with American Airlines, the actual, the company.
Yeah.
I feel like if they have a lot of tourists who come in, a lot of those tourists are more respectful. Like, they may not know all of the customs and all of the traditions and all of the
Mm.
TSA requirements, just like this one lady who didn't understand milliliter levels in London or whatever. But at the very least, they're not going to like throw a fit about everything because they're like, I don't know everything. Whatever
Yeah.
happens, happens. I should expect this going to a place I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So American TSA agents are probably get more pissy with our own people than they do other people in
Yeah.
other countries. Especially
Mm-hmm.
because like America is such a diverse country that like you TSA agents wouldn't be able to automatically like suss out somebody as being part of from a different country because they could be Asian American, they could be Native American, they could be whatever, but they were born in America. But they look like
Mm-hmm.
they might have, come from a country outside of the US, but
Yeah.
they're not going to be dicks about it.
I've also noticed when it comes to the international airlines, it's kind of like what we do, I guess, here in the States. Any place you go, they're going to be like prideful of that state. Like, depending on where you go, they've got like monuments, they've got like history of wherever the hell you just landed in. It was the same for both Germany and London and Tel Aviv. They all, especially Tel Aviv, they had like ancient artifacts that probably should be in a museum, weren't, probably should, but they were just on display. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And in each of those international places that I've landed in, I guarantee you, probably not everywhere, they had welcome in like varying languages.
Oh yeah, that's always fun.
So that was really cool. You can kind of, because English is such a huge and vast language that has spread all over the world, you really don't have to worry about knowing the language in the area. When you go to the more niche areas, such as Bethlehem, Jerusalem, yeah, you're going to want a translator. But the main areas, such as the airport, you have like signs in 7 different languages.
Yeah, because they're expecting a lot of people to be there
Mm-hmm.
from
Yep.
different places, and that all makes sense. That was actually, ironically enough, the whole thing about them speak like English being a language that travels across the world, whether we like it or not. Or actually, I guess never mind. Did you so? What did what did the numbers look like in terms of how many people spoke, like how many people were able to speak English to a conversational level where you could still understand what they were getting at, and like how often, if at all, did you need a translator or something to help you figure out who you were talking to, what they wanted, or where you were going?
So our tour guide, when communicating with, the people in charge of where we were going. So say we were going to, again, Harold's summer palace or the ruins. He let the person know in their home language, this is my group. We have this for the allotted time. We'll be done so and so. So important pieces like such as that of where we're going, he's letting people in charge of that area know what's going on. In terms of actual touring and people around us, it was very English dominated. I mean, I think I told you when I was in a really, really pristine church, like a 4,000-year-old church that had been built, destroyed upon like 7 times, there was people working in there that spoke perfect English. So it was the need for a translator did come in handy a lot of times, but it was not necessary all the time.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, especially because of what you were talking about earlier, I imagine if you're going to a lot of these like designated guided tours, they're probably going to be taking you to areas that are, one, culturally relevant to the area, two,
Mm-hmm.
religiously relevant to the area, and three, probably tourist friendly.
Tourist
Even to the
friendly
point of,
to a point. One of my favorite, I don't want to say it, I guess that sounds horrible. Most interesting aspects of what you just said is that because it's so tourist dominated, a lot of sideshow sellers know it's a dominated area, and that's where you get professional pickpocketers. So our tour guide let us know ahead of time, keep your bag in front of you, because what they do is they have their kids, these people that are trying to sell you things as you're walking through the tour, like the guided toured areas. I had one kid come up to me and he was just holding a whole ass goat, trying to distract me to pet it so that a person could come behind me and take my wallet, passport, anything. They're just that good. So he had to let us know beforehand, do not make eye contact. It's almost like, when you're playing a Pokemon game, don't make eye contact, keep your head down,
do
don't
not walk in
interact
front
with
of the
any of
trainers.
them. Yeah. So that was, I guess you can add it to a culture shock of, oh, okay, this is just like a regular thing. They can't do anything about it because they are free to sell this aggressively. Like they will follow you until they can find the next gullible person.
Yeah, my dumbass definitely would have fallen for it and been like, and then pet the goat, and I'd be like, damn, my wallet. That's why that's why what you do is you trick them. You don't take shit with you. Take absolutely nothing. You're like, yeah, try and pickpocket me, pussies. All you're gonna get is lint and maybe a penny, which isn't even useful in your. Well, it's probably useful.
You'll find a twig that I found on the ground and wanted to keep.
Yeah, you'll find this sick ass rock that I found. It's like this rock is shaped like
a rock.
Yeah, this rock is shaped like a rock. I'm gonna make it a pet. If you steal this rock, I'll be a little bit sad.
Rock. That's what makes it special. You can
Yeah,
have
this
it.
this is one of the rocks of all time. And if you take it from me, boy, will I be a little bit sad. But you won't get all my money, fuckers. But yeah, I suppose a lot of places that are especially rife for tourists. Like I feel like any country in the world that is like, especially I don't. Damn it. I suppose if you're an American going to a lot of first world countries, there's a pretty good chance that they have a lot of American sort of, oh shit, what's the word? I don't know. Like I imagine they have a bunch of commodities that help make the existing and the touring of an area really like easy or easier, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because like another country that I can think of that would like I've heard a lot of stories of like things in Japan just being listed in both languages because there's obviously just a lot of American tourists or just tourists there who speak English.
Oh yeah,
So
a lot
it
of the
just makes
times
traversing a lot
you would go
easier.
to the shops and they would have it both in their currency as well as ours. So you didn't have to do the whole pulling out your calculator and trying to figure out the difference.
Yeah, or trying to pull out a bunch of money to convert
Uh huh.
their
They
to
know
their
converting
currency.
is kind of a hassle, which is why they accept most credit cards as well.
Yeah, shouts out. Yeah, I have a friend who went to South Korea a few months ago, and I swear to God, I'm pretty sure she had to. Well, she was going there for like a study abroad thing, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she had to pull out a lot of her money because I don't think they. My guess is wherever she was didn't really allow for that to happen, or like they didn't have the. Why can't I think of the word? They didn't have like the I can't think of it. They didn't accept both currencies.
Skill diff
Maybe.
moment.
Yeah, I there's like a specific word on the tip of my tongue where it's like they didn't really have the convenience of being able to take both types of currency, and so I
Yep.
could be flubbing the words, and she's never going to listen to this, so she's not going to know. But that's that's how that went for her. So it's nice to hear that they were at least. It's nice to hear that the Israelites, I think is what they're actually called, were more friendly
hmm
to you than like a lot of American people would be to you.
from like the other way around. Yeah. We actually got to learn some of
Actually,
the
that too. Yeah.
customs. Israeli people will treat you like family. Like they want you to come in, see their country, see how they live. They actually get very excited about that.
They will treat you like a family, but not in the way that your boss will try and treat you like family.
Yeah, this is a family. So come work this Saturday. No, I actually learned a
I will be in
custom.
Tel Aviv. I can't.
I learned a custom regarding coffee. If you are visiting a
Oh, of
family
course.
and they want you to stay, they will only fill your cup halfway, kind of like an invitation of like, if you want more, you are welcome to stay. We enjoy your company. If they fill your coffee cup to all the way full, that means finish it and get out.
Be gone, thought.
Big God. This is funny. I really tried not to laugh. I didn't want to be like appalling, but I found that just so funny at the time.
I mean, there are really subtle. I mean, it's this is not going to go down a rabbit hole, but a lot of customs that indicate whether or not people want you to like a lot of customs in different countries regarding if you are being polite to somebody or if they wish to continue in your presence or whatever are based around food. Like
hmm
once again, going back to Japanese culture because it's the only culture I like truly can understand a little bit of. You know, taking 3 years being taught by a person who was born in Japan and lived there would probably help. Um, there's a whole thing of like don't if you're eating like don't finish all of your food because it looks disrespectful because you're like wow you're a bitch you couldn't cook enough food for me where it's like if you don't finish all of it it's like this food was so good and it bested me is
Yeah.
essentially what that is so
Yeah, the vastly different customs and things and do's and don'ts was incredible over there. As well as where we stayed, we had a already like chosen hotel in the areas that we would be touring that day. So I stayed in I think three different hotels. But when we landed, got our stuff, finished, woke up, and there was just this banquet of food. I mean, there was dried fish, there was salmon, there was oh gosh, one of their really salty but like native fish for breakfast. They had different types of cheeses. I mean, it was not like your typical eggs, bacon, none of that. No, like this was a Mediterranean feast for breakfast.
yeah because I think the people of Israel especially because they're Hebrew and that's their like language and that's kind of their culture like they don't do pork things I think
Kosher, yeah.
yeah it's all kosher so they're like here take the 30 different kinds of fish that we just have on hand.
Yep, no, that's exactly. It's just like, we caught this morning. Here you go. Enjoy.
Yeah. That's man. We'll probably get into their food in a little bit. Actually, no, we can get into it now. Fuck it. It's like just I don't know, what's I don't know. Like it's pretty easy to you're like an American. I can safely say, right? I
Yeah.
take no.
Let me double check.
It's
Passport. Yep, I am an American.
it's wrong. I'm like, I have to make an edit and then do an alt take where I'm like, so you're, and then insert whatever. No. So like as a result, it means that you kind of like know what the stereotypical things are for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, especially within like different workforces as well. So I'm wondering what the differences, like really stark differences were.
So like I said, you did if you like wanted to have it, with eggs, bacon, cereal. But there are very, like I said, there was fish, so many different types of cheeses. They really like their pastries as well, and they have the most incredible honey. Except it's not honey that you think bees. No, no, this is honey from dates. They have a very specific type of honey made from dates, and it is so rich. I mean, you can only have so much of it. I put it on like my watermelon because they had so many, like an array of fruits. But it was the sweetest honey I've ever had. Their food is very rich. I actually had to make sure I didn't eat a lot of it for breakfast because one, I really wasn't used to eating breakfast. I'd wake up late in the day because I'm a bum. Uh, Two, because it's food that my stomach was not used to having, I had just kind of like that intuition of I probably should not just engorge myself with this. And I was right because everyone that did was just feeling nauseous later in the day because, you think America, preservatives, a lot of chemicals. This was clean food. Like they pride themselves on serving the cleanest food to where a lot of people's stomach was just not ready for it.
I also imagine it probably doesn't help if you're like you just feel bad when you eat a ton of food regardless of the quality of it and then you're out
Mhm.
in the blistering sun.
A
You
blistering
know,
sun.
getting the fish sweats.
Exactly. I my body took so long to, what do you want to call it, like get used to it, that I actually had to, it went into like a mild shock and I got sick for like a day. I was actually like paralyzed to my bed. Everything hurt to move because the environment is so harsh and so sudden. And that was me drinking, like, if you want to, I brought like a really huge water bottle that had like 4 bottles of water in one canister, like
Huh.
amount wise. And I was slamming that and I still got sick, which only leads me to respect their culture that much more for them to just go on their daily basis of, oh, yeah, our street signs are kind of melting right now, but I feel fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also just as a natural result of them being there for a long time because it's
Mhm.
like there's not a huge like for example, there's not a huge climate shift between here like there's not that drastic of a climate shift between where you and I are and where Alec is. But when
Yeah.
he came down here, down to not here, he's not down to you guys. He was like out for 3 days because it is a sudden elevation change and it like killed him.
Yep. And we went from, where I am right now to like below sea level, way below sea level in some areas because that place, used to be a huge sea.
Yeah,
And
classic.
so it yeah, it took a toll on quite a few people. I've never had motion sickness until then.
Yeah,
And that was a weird wake up call, let me tell you.
I can imagine.
They For lunch it was kind of like the three same things for a little bit until we had something, like we went to a new place, which was shawarma,
Oh,
which
yes.
yep, their shawarma is a form of like chicken. So it's
Oh,
a
okay.
pita pocket with different greens and then the chicken. And then falafel, which comes in like varying, what do you want to call it? Varying forms. It's still like the breaded chickpea, but sometimes there's different sauces, there's different types of breading, etc., etc. And then schnitzel, but it's not the German pork schnitzel. It's a thin sheet of chicken that has been breaded and fried.
Schnicken.
Schnicken, yeah,
Chicken.
sure. Um, it was good. I kind of like have my, what do you want to call it? My favorite meal, which was the pork, because when you went to places that actually served it, oh, it was so good.
it's a forbidden thing, so that people like we have to make. Well, actually, I don't know the psychology behind making what would be not really a culturally but a religiously sort of forbidden. I mean, I guess kosher is like it's a rule, but it's not a
Mhm.
law.
It's
Like,
whatever. It's like depending on if you want to follow the religion, sure, and if you don't, there's places that will serve non-kosher items.
well, yeah, because obviously it's like if being a Christian actually had. Well, hold on, no, let me flip this. It's like how Mormonism says you can't drink coffee and tea. I live in the biggest Mormon state in the whole goddamn country, and there are Starbucks on every not on every corner. That's way too much of an exaggeration. There's coffee shops all over the damn place.
Yeah,
We're like, we ain't no bitch. But
you may not need caffeine. We do.
yeah, I think I feel like Mormon people do need caffeine. They just won't admit it, and so they just suffer. Me, I've never needed a drop of caffeine in my life because I have so much pent up energy all the time. But speaking of the schnitzel, that's also like the Australian version of it as well.
hmm
They don't do the whole German pork type deal. It is just a chicken.
Yeah.
Chicken.
They actually have. I don't remember the name of the sauces, but they have very specific forms of like tzatziki sauce that
Isn't that cucumber?
that would be. So there's the Greek version of tzatziki, and then there's Israeli tzatziki.
Also, it's spelled.
Two.
It's pronounced tzatziki. I'm sorry, I didn't want to do that, but I googled it and I was like, oh yeah, that's how that's spelled. Fuck you.
That's how they pronounced it back there. Is tzatziki.
Okay, so maybe I'm the stupid one.
Possibly.
Hey, shut the fuck up, me.
Shush.
Shut the fuck your mouth.
They call it. Oh gosh, it's a Israeli name for the sauce. Same ingredients and everything, just made different and called different.
In a language that I definitely don't understand.
Yep, in a language I probably cannot pronounce, and I won't try and offend someone.
Yeah, it's yeah. Whenever like we get a lot of temps at my job, and whenever somebody comes in with a name that I don't understand, I don't even try and make a joke about it. I'm just like, I don't know how to pronounce their name. How do you pronounce it? And they're like, this is how I pronounce it. I'm like, all right, thanks. And then as it turns out, I never talked to them anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I mean, that's a good time. The closest thing that I have ever had to like, on one hand, a few weeks ago, I had Indian food for the first time, and I was like, this is a good time. And it reminded me of this joke that this guy, there's a person who wrote a book about like the British conquering different islands and whatever.
hmm
And there's a joke that's like the British pillaged so many islands, so many countries, spilled so much blood to get spices from all around the world, and then decided they didn't like any of them.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole thing of like, imagine if you're a person from India who like makes these, you know, exquisite dishes with all of these spices and all of these flavors and all these textures and all of these things, and then you get told that British and or French food is the best thing ever, and you're just like eating meat with no seasoning with like a sauce made of two ingredients.
See, I agree with that so much because you know how on long flights they give you food. I have no problem saying this because it's just true, and they gotta have to deal with that. The plane flight from London to Tel Aviv, I didn't even touch the food, and I was starving because I just got served this same color, same texture, even though it was different foods meal, and I'm like, you know what, you can take this back. No, I'm good. It
You're like,
was
I'm fine.
it was gravy, and of course their lovely beans and like a really weird scattered bunch of vegetables. I'm like, this looks like it was kind of eaten already. You can take it back.
You're like, why is it gray? It's
Why
like
is
vegetables
it
have
so
color. Why are they
gray?
gray? What did you do to them?
I mean, even the crackers. It's like, how did you ruin crackers?
The crackers ruined the crackers. How could this have happened? I thought they would have known better.
So it's why they have the Gordon Ramsay restaurant right after customs. They're trying to convince you a lie.
They're trying to, yeah, but also like if I don't know, Gordon Ramsay makes a lot of money for a good reason, and I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like a part of that is because his restaurants are probably expensive as shit.
distraction.
Well, no, not a distraction. They're probably expensive as shit if I had to guess.
Well, it's like it's the distraction from like the rest of the airport that did not serve good food. That was like the one good place to go to.
Yeah, they're like, if you
Besides
want
the
to eat
Harry Potter
something that
store, that
actually
was
will
a
make you
good deal.
feel alive, give us
Did you ever feel
$60.
something?
It's like, I don't wanna. But no, the other thing I was going to say is I had a gyro for the first time, which I know is not an Israeli thing. It's a Greek thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, hell yeah, this shit's fire. And that was it.
This is cool. Anyways.
So, but it seems like so a lot of what they're giving you is a lot of fish, a lot of fruit, and a lot of cheese. But
Hmm.
what are some other one? I guess it's like, how did the dinners look? And two, what were some other outstanding foods that you saw that you were like, whoa?
So it was just mostly how, again, clean the food was. They also, because we went to really high standing hotels, because my family had chosen a decent tour line that they heard from another family friend. Obviously, these hotels in that country were like compared to a 4-star hotel here. So they
Oh,
wanted to make sure you kind of had an array of foods that you would be comfortable eating, no matter what, you were Jewish, Christian,
no matter
Muslim.
your culinary restrictions.
Yeah, they had kind of like an area for each place, as well as like decadent desserts. I mean, like cakes that I would have my hand slapped in Costco if I were like reached for one as a kid. It
Oh yeah, I'd be
was,
like, we can't afford that shit.
yep, we don't touch. If you break, you buy, and I don't want to buy.
And you cry.
Yeah, it was buffet style as well, so you could go up get as much as you want. There was different pastas. There was, I think my favorite is they really like their stuffed mushrooms. I mean,
Huh.
that one probably was like the best thing to have, was just the stuffed mushrooms. Um, in the morning, they seat you, like they do not want you getting up. They like to serve you. They would have specific people come and serve you coffee, give you cream. You don't go up and go get it yourself. They had different yogurts. I mean, they liked their yogurts, and again, you can use dates, honey. Another one at the last restaurant, or sorry, not restaurant, hotel we went to, they had pure honeycomb, and you could scrape it off your, yes, it just pure honeycomb on a stand, and you just got your spoon out, let it drip there, and then pour it on your food, and then continue.
You know what? I've just come out of the realization of this. Everybody has that one word that makes them uncomfortable, and I think drip might be that word for me. If it's used in any other context other than you looking fly as hell in your clothing, I get madly uncomfortable. Like the way that you just said that, you were like, the honey drips onto your spoon, and I was like, I'm gonna kill myself.
I'm so happy to be your word awakening.
I'm not. I didn't think this day was gonna come.
You're so welcome. Oh man, I'm so happy.
Anywho, the giant honeycomb on the table. That shit's baller as hell.
It was really cool to see, and it's like right in the middle of the dessert too, in case you wanted honey on your dessert. They had different soups. I got to have like a really good, like chicken herb soup, which was absolutely banger because I was sick the day before. So I'm like, I'm gonna take all of this right now. Goodbye.
Give me the industrial sized pot of your soup, please.
Everything was made like they kept it warm no matter what time you went in for breakfast or dinner. Oh, they also had salad for dinner. They really like their salad too. I mean, like there was really nothing fatty besides the good fat type food,
Oh yeah.
like the beneficial.
Yeah, or at the very
Um,
least, they just have a lot of like options because like they don't have any ill intentions. They're just like, this is food that we make that is good. If it
all of
happens
it,
to
yeah,
be this,
all of
then
it's
that's how
fresh.
it
None of
is.
it is reheated. Um, I actually really liked their beer too. I had
Oh
an
yeah.
Israeli beer. Oh, I can't go back to anything else. It was so good and smooth. It didn't have just like that liquor chemical aftertaste. I'm like, oh, this is a dangerous type liquor. I could have more of this.
Yeah. That's that's. I'm glad that I have yet to find anything like that because I've heard tales of liquors that are really high proof and somehow really smooth. I'm like, first of all, that's magic, and so if I drink the magic potion, I will probably die.
uh, yeah. If I could and afford it, I would have gotten so many of that.
There is exactly one. There is only one liquor that I have ever fiended for before, and I can probably get it in the States, but I definitely have to travel somewhere that I don't know where to travel yet.
Mm-hmm.
either that or I have to probably go to Japan myself because and it's not for any reason other than I saw it on a cooking show where this guy made a $400 cheesesteak because he thought it'd be funny.
Yeah.
And he used this Japanese whiskey that I tried seeing if we could get here. And then as soon as I tried looking it up, I was like, oh yeah, I live in Utah. That's not happening in ever. And then I was like, hold on, maybe I can travel down to Colorado to see my friends and maybe they'll have it that nope. Couldn't get it there either. And so I've given up. And so my next voyage is to spend $150 to get my passport. Spend like $650 per person on a ticket through some roundabout way that doesn't make any sense. Travel to Japan, realize it might actually not be as great as I'm thinking it is because I'm dumb, and then I'll be content with my days.
Mayday, live one way to find out, huh?
Yeah, I just that's a lot of money to commit that I don't have.
Yeah, there's one problem of our generation.
Got no money.
So they are again very, in terms of breakfast. I feel like Gru saying, in terms of breakfast, there is no breakfast.
In terms of breakfast, we have no breakfast.
We have no breakfast. It is a salad, meats, a lot of bread, a lot of yogurt, and a lot of fruit, and of course, fish. That is about it.
Start. Yeah, that's just the whole thing.
That is the whole thing.
That is the whole thing. Okay, damn.
They have varying forms of it, but that's mostly it.
Yeah, those are the core components, but you can make anything out of anything. So I respect that. Let me go back on track now. Well, I guess technically we were on track because I officially decree we talk about their food, but back to the questions that I actually have written down here. So you've explained to me a lot of the culture differences you've noticed already, which is that like the airport, especially like airports and like tourist friendly areas are very welcoming to said tourists in like a really healthy way and not in like a model minority kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
The people will treat you like family and respectfully request that you stay in their presence if they like you and things like that. But what are some of the other really big culture differences that you noticed from the point of touchdown to the point of leaving?
A lot of times, the importance of sticking together.
Oh yeah, so you don't get pickpocketed or lost.
Pickpocketed, lost, and or trafficked.
Oh yeah, that well.
When you are my size, and obviously you look my age, which I do not, you are seen as a target. I was eyed down multiple times. I was actually like one of the people in our group. His name was Jason. I stuck with him more because in some of those cultures, mostly I want to say Palestinian, not Israeli, which they do live together. If they see a female alone, it's kind of like, oh, she really doesn't have anyone that thinks she's worth enough to go and protect. I say, my mother, when she was deployed in a very similar area, she had to be assigned a male at all times or else she would be approached as a target. And of course, I was leered at. I think I told you in a very, very highly important church, I was approached, and I'll give you the details on that. I had just walked out. Obviously, I was with a group. I mean, I had like a name tag. We had really bright green tags to like, hey, this person is with this group. They are going that way.
Yeah, it's like trying to wrangle up a bunch of kids at a daycare.
Yeah. No, I felt like a babysitter. I needed a few like backpacks with leashes on for some people because they were not aware.
You need the child leashes from Walmart for
yes,
people who
exactly.
are twice your age.
Yeah, the raccoon, the monkey, and all those types of backpacks.
Like dog harness.
Yes, exactly. But I had just walked out of this really highly important religious room, and there was a guy already like that made eye contact with me, and I was like, oh, cool, I know that type of look.
This is a fucking mistake.
Please don't come up to Fun fact, he came up and talked to me. And because I'm not someone where I want to cause a scene and have like that could be like a distraction, it can cause problems, etc. um, he started talking to me, and I just kind of like nodded as I'm like waiting for the rest of the group to come out of this little room as we were meeting right outside the little room. And I was like walking backwards slowly as kind of like, hey, this is my group. I don't want to talk right now. I'm just nodding my head to everything you say because I don't like your presence. Excuse me. And he could tell that I'm not being responsive. I'm just kind of humoring him. And he, like, before I go, he grabs my wrist, which is red flag number 1Z. If the rest of it wasn't already red flag, and whispered, I'll give you my passport, you'll give me yours, and we'll go on a trip. And I'm like, no, goodbye. No. And this was like one instance of many like that, where they find you like a gullible, small American girl.
I feel like you can only be so gullible traveling to a different country to accept a proposal like that. Like, what the hell?
Well, not only that, it's like, why?
Why under any circumstances? Like
¿Por qué?
Yeah. You start speaking in Spanish and they're like, I don't understand.
That's like, a lot of them actually speak Spanish. It is
what
weird.
The fuck?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
A lot of them are trilingual? Something like that. Trilingual. Where even if you like try and play that, they're going to continue to like their advances. Because this culture is determined to like hold your attention. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
I was gonna make a joke about people who put the Subway Surfer videos under other videos to keep you paying attention. That's I couldn't think of a good way to explain that. But is this what you're trying to get swole for? So you're like, yes, I'm short, but I'm buff as shit. Leave me alone.
Go away. No boobs on the eyes.
Mort, go away. My group is in that room and you're not leave me alone.
I had another instance at the Dead Sea where I am, oh my gosh, my family just, makes me so irritated sometimes. Because at the Dead Sea, it was very rare to see anyone like wearing even like a one piece. A lot of the females had their head covering, like they had full covering and went into the Dead Sea with full covering. It was really dominated by that culture of women are kind of property and really only for making children, carrying on your lineage. Like they were very objectified in that area. And so our tour guide let us know that. I brought a one piece for this reason because I wanted to be more covered. I was in no way, shape, or form wanting to seem showy. The only like 2 bikinis I saw was from very, very pasty ginger girls. That is it.
Who you could tell we're not from here.
We're not from here. Yes. That being said, we go down to the Dead Sea. We do our thing. The water is so salty that you can't even swim. You just float.
Yeah, and you like can't sink.
Yep. Bloody fuck. Anyways.
They're dying.
Just mildly. And so my mother is a picture, like she will take 17 pictures of the same thing for that one good shot. And in this little grotto, you know, kind of like when you go to a water park, there's specific areas where your family sits, eats, like enjoys their time.
You kind of like little dedicated square.
Yeah, cabana areas.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this was mostly male-dominated, and they had liquor, they had hookahs, very 30s to 40s age range, male-dominated. And I was already being leered at, and I was covered with a towel for this reason. And my mother decides to run straight through it because she saw the smallest pictured area. And already I'm just like, this is my mother who's like educated me. Never do this situation in another country, and we were also away from the group, so it was just me and her. We had no male like protection, none of it. And so my like red flags, I had like 17 popping up in my head. And so I couldn't let her go and do that alone because she was also a target. So I ran over and I'm pretty sure I bruised her ribs because I yelled at her. I'm like, we are going now.
We are
Because
leaving.
we are going until she finally snapped out of, oh, I want my picture to every damn male is looking at us right now. And a few of them started to get up and approach us. And I like grabbed her wrist and I booked it. And like some of them were trying to get into our path to talk to us, type predatory. So in terms of culture that way, it is just a stark difference of a tourist area and a not so tourist area. Especially away from our group. I felt it felt like walking through a den of lions almost.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of the most appropriate comparison that could be made there. That's just kind of how it is over there, unfortunately.
Yep. So it's not all, oh cool, this food is really great, or man, I really like these souvenirs. It's possible very real danger because they don't really care if you are in a group. You kind of look like a free target because the law systems there are so different.
Yeah, because they're very like people want to talk about how male forward facing the laws in the US are. I imagine it has to be infinitely worse over there.
It is horrendous. Again, I had random men come up to never ask my age, name, none of it. Just, you are pretty exotic American girl who looks probably 14. Because I didn't do my hair, makeup, I didn't care. I was going to be sweating.
You're like, it is too fucking hot to be doing all that.
It is too hot. The only thing I did with I had two little buns, so I looked even younger. And of course, I have this big backpack, so it's just like, 6th grade, here we go again.
Oh no!
It's only made it worse. Of you are approaching me. Please don't. So yes, there was those instances.
Huh.
In terms of cultural differences.
Huh. Jeez, okay. So I guess ultimately the way that I'm perceiving this is that you will probably have a better time or a more safe time if you are a man going over there.
Yes, absolutely. And that's not to be every male there is horrible. No. I actually made friends with one of the hairdressers at the shop that we bought all these souvenirs from. I have a really cool little lion that I got. But he saw me looking at books. We started talking. I told him about the type of books I like to read. He told me about the type of books he liked to read, and he ended up giving me a really small olive wood journal. And he's, funnily enough, a hairdresser that's actually coming and trying to study in New York.
Oh, that's funny.
So, not all of the guys are predatory, but a good chunk of it is, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, well, it's just not all of them are predatory, but there was a lot of experiences in the... How long were you there?
Oh gosh, 10 days?
Yeah, 10 to... Damn, I honestly thought it was 2 weeks minimum. 10 days. You can already... I mean, there's been a minimum of 3 stories of that caliber already. Mm-hmm. So... Yeah, I guess tread lightly if you're going to be over there. 1, if you're a woman. 2, if you're sensitive to the heat. 3, if you're sensitive to food.
Yeah, if you are food sensitive, you are going to be very specific on what you need.
So that's, But I guess no one's going to use this podcast to figure that out.
Even if you are not a religious person, it is a wonderful experience. Some call it life-changing, depending on what you refer to as life-changing. But it is definitely just I can see life differently now that I've done this trip.
Yeah, in general. I mean, that's generally how a lot of these things tend to go, where it's you will learn exponentially more by indulging yourself in something that is vastly different from what you are used to.
Mm-hmm. And this can range from outside the comfort zone too.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's probably the biggest thing. But it's even something as small as from my perspective of the job that I work at, there are a lot of different things that have to make the gears turn at the job that I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just get to learn, you know, I get to learn a lot more by understanding the process that other people have to go through to make the gears turn than if I was to just try and spectate it from an outsider's perspective. And so then you can extrapolate that to something as big as, well, if you're going to a different country that is not westernized to hell and back, then you're going to learn a lot. And you're going to learn a lot about like stereotypes. I don't know why that was the first thing I turned to, but you're like, especially depending on how prevalent these kinds of countries and their culture is in the general media that you consume, you will learn so much more about the context behind it and all those sorts of things if you're actually there
Mm-hmm.
to experience it in the moment like everybody else is.
Oh yeah. I saw different types of like farming culture because you have it's basically desert up until the coast. So
Yeah.
you have these little pockets of land that is either rich in soil or is not. So a lot of times the farmers back then had to go and manually find out what soil was good based on where springs were. There was shepherd tactics, like in some of the ruins we went to, there was man-made caves where if it got too hot, they would put the sheep in those caves, and when it was too cold, they would build fires in the caves. And I have tons of pictures on my phone of these caves with soot marks on the roof.
Oh yeah, from all the smoke that would be hitting the roof, quote unquote, or the
Yeah,
ceiling, quote unquote.
as well as King Harold and his like 4 mile irrigation tract because he knew that he had to drill holes in the piping of the irrigation, otherwise pressure would build up and destroy the whole thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you just sit there, you're just like, how did they have access to this knowledge? Two, how long did these practices have to be implemented for them to like figure out, this is what works, this is what doesn't? Because we rely so heavily on technology these days, whereas they're still doing some of those 1,000-year-old practices to this day.
Yeah, because that's just what they can do best for their area.
Mm-hmm. And we actually got to see, you have the really pretty tourist areas, very made to look nice to the public areas, and our bus driver purposely drove us into the poverty areas to say, hey, not everywhere is nice and pretty. There's places with graffiti everywhere. um, there is a lot of trash. I mean, you can find ripped up sofas all over, like non-degradable plastic, a lot of junk in like farming areas where you normally wouldn't see. And I even asked, our tour guide's name was a Hebrew one I can't pronounce, but I asked like, hey, why, I don't mean to be rude, why is there so much trash out here though? And he's like, there's just some areas where they try and implement it into their house because it's cheap material instead of buying really necessary material because of the expenses. I mean, even now, they cannot build a building unless it's used with the native materials. I think limestone it was. Like, every building has to be limestone. Like, to this day,
Otherwise,
they cannot build it. They can't build it unless it's with the native rock of limestone.
but like, is there a geographical reason for that? Like,
No, I didn't
is it
get
like
this one. I just said there is a law that they cannot have the foundation not be limestone.
And that law is probably, if I had to guess, that law would probably be created as a result of the conditions to say, any other material you have cannot exist on this turf, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess speaking on the point of like, speaking on the point of, not everything is sunshine and rainbows, and there's areas that are very deliberately touristy, which are going to draw people's eyes in and lead you with the experience that you probably had a good chunk of the time. I would say a statistical majority of the time. But to really experience what a country is about, you also need to go and visit other places. Some safe, albeit not so savory locations are going to help you achieve that.
Yeah.
And that can literally be said of like any country in the world. Like I was listening to a podcast of these guys talking to an Australian guy, and he was like, obviously Americans want to come here and they want to see X, Y, and Z. All the places you hear people talking about when they go to Australia, going to Sydney, going to Melbourne, going to Bondi Beach or whatever. He's like, but if you really want to understand what Australia is about and why we are who we are and understanding our culture, you need to go to like a local town. You need to go to
Yep.
small places, small chains, explore the outback, because nobody fucking goes to the outback or whatever. And even for something like America, where a lot of people think of it as like basically all urban or all suburban to some degree, it's like, well, you can't just go to all the places that are advertised on the internet as being the places that represent America, quote unquote. You need to go to the South. You need to go to the North. You need to explore the Midwest. And yeah, sure, you can go see some of those fun touristy attractions. And like, if you're going to spend 2 weeks there, you're probably fine to spend a decent chunk of your time in those places. But if you really want to understand what makes a country that country and really get a better understanding of what a country is like outside of its stereotypical understanding of what they're like, you should be going to these lesser explored areas, even if it means sometimes it's not the most savory to look at.
There was, speaking on that, our tour guide wanted us to have that authentic, real time experience. And so he took us to a place, and I'm probably going to botch this, unfortunately, but it's called a kibbutz or a kibbutzki, where, because, the Jews were a very, I guess hated is a very strong word, but then again,
I
there
think
were
it's
strong
true.
actions against their people.
Discriminated upon.
Yeah, discriminated upon. So they had these little areas called kibbutz where they raised their kids, and it was very much, I think the term socialism would be the best for it, because people would go and they would work for the kibbutz, lots of farming, irrigation, all of that. They all ate in the same area. Um, they were not paid. They all got the same clothes. They all got the same type of health care. It was, everyone is equal. Everyone has the same thing. Besides, of course, the leader of these kibbutzkis. If a woman had a baby, she would have it, nurse it till it didn't need to be nursed anymore, and then it would go where all the other kids were. So it was all these little small Jewish communities up until, modern day, where now kids are like, we don't want to be in this type of ruling. We're going to go do what we want in now, like the city of Israel. But some of the kibbutz are still like implemented, and he actually took us to some of his friends that lived in them. And so you see everyone has the same house still. It's very, think like New York apartments, except not the good kind.
Well, yeah, just like a lot of buildings.
Very
Think of it,
basic.
a lot of buildings that have the exact same template to them.
Mm-hmm. Template, water system. When we were walking by, they actually had like bomb shelters because we were in a very high bomb area. I mean, every 10 minutes you would hear a jet go by because they were protecting that area. The Israeli military was. Excuse me. And as we're walking by, there's this boy that's just in a bucket, taking a bath.
Just chilling, so far as he can.
Yes, and I looked at, our tour guide. I'm like, is this normal? He's like, oh, yeah. If the family chooses to stay here, they live minimally, very minimally, because it's such a, the Jewish people are very traditional people. And so some of them stuck to that traditional way of living. And it is absolutely not a fancy way, but it is a way they get by. And a lot of people like that just want enough to get by.
It's safe enough.
It's safe enough. They really don't have much to worry about. It is a culture that does not need a lot. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you have so many differing areas in Jerusalem. I mean, you had like Sea of Galilee where people lived extravagantly, and then you have the kibbutz area, which they did not need a lot to live by.
Yeah, that's exactly what you would come to expect from trying to get a real authentic look at how a country operates. My favorite thing is that I for some reason I make a lot of, well, I don't make a lot, I steal a lot of jokes from The podcast I was talking about earlier, that's hosted by two people who happen to be culturally Jewish to some degree, different from different parts of the world. Though one's from Iran and one of them is from like Lithuania. Not like they're
Mhm.
persons, but they're tree branches of Judaism.
Yeah.
Um, and so even though I'm not Jewish in any capacity, I like stealing their jokes because I think they're funny. So they were doing a video where they were making like a really old like they were making like a meal from a really old part of history. We're talking like the
Hmm.
900s or something, like ninth
Yeah.
ninth and 10th centuries probably. It was like a Christmas thing, I think. And the guy just goes, "Hey, what do you think Jewish people were doing in the 9th century?" And then somebody Googled it and they were like, "Ah, yes, the expulsion of Jews." And he was like, "Oh, well, when did that happen?" And they were like, "Well, there were like 9 of them dating over 800 years." And he's like, "Well.
So I was like,
So,
which one do you want?
yeah, you can pick one. I'll show you the list right now. No. It's weird to me that they you look at something like that in Jerusalem and how, or I guess Jerusalem, Israel, where they're all residing, and then in America you still have just an exorbitantly high amount of people who like demonize these groups of people for things that are just like entirely unfair. And I'm not here to get into discriminatory things. I keep seeing this ad for this weird like Jewish like movie or something where there's a guy singing like a traditional like Jewish song or like prayer song or something.
Are you talking
And
about Fiddler on the Roof?
no, this is like a new movie that like came out recently. I have never seen Fiddler on the Roof. It either is new and just came out or it hasn't come out yet. But this guy, he's like singing. It's at like a what I could only describe as like a pseudo talent show, and he's like singing the song or whatever. And the top like 10 comments are really supportive, and then suddenly there's just a flood of just anti-Semitic rhetoric.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where there was like every time I would open up my TikTok page, and they'd be like, Jewish people account for 1% of the population, and yet you can see how they get treated by society. And I was like, damn, that's rough. So it's
Oh
crazy to
yeah.
think that, even though the living conditions for Jewish people are probably worse over there, they're at least more societally accepted to some degree, or at least they have their own communities to themselves.
They have their own communities. They are more accepted there, and again, because they're that country is so different from ours. What we consider comfortable living is very different from what they consider comfortable living.
Yeah. That's kind of like it. I don't know. I genuinely am too ignorant to understand what classifies a country as being a first world country. But I don't know if Israel would be classified as a first world country in that regard. I imagine they probably could because you probably reach like a peak of like it's probably not examining the overall, but more so whatever the highest end might be. I don't really know. But all
Parts
that
of
has to be said is
Israel,
like first world problems for us.
yeah. So parts of Israel is a first world country. Yes.
Yeah, parts of them, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's it's just a first world country versus a third world country type issue, I suppose.
Hmm. Yeah, you got little pockets of like first world, then you have like third world. It really depends on where you go and the type of people living there.
Yeah, and that all makes sense. At this point, even though uh, I didn't officially ask a couple of these questions, they ended up getting answered at some point or another. So, like, one of the ones that I had in here is like, what did your temporary living situation look like? And from what I can understand, it seems like you guys were in multiple hotels across the 10 days.
And they made sure we were in comfortable ones. We actually had to get a adapter because they go by European outlets. So
Yeah.
if you are going to travel, make sure you know what kind of outlet they accept. Because if we did not get that adapter, we would not have phones.
Yeah. You know, be straight out of luck until you could maybe find somewhere that could
Hmm.
sell you an adapter, I suppose.
As well as the jet lag hit me in the shits. I have never been so like disorientated. And again, I've never gotten motion sick. I got motion sick from the jet lag. I even had like mild paranoia, which is like one of the much rare cases of jet lag and like that much traveling because we went from Colorado to London, so already that is a huge time
It's like
zone
what,
jump. And
like a
then
7 hour jump or something?
because we also passed over Ireland and Dublin, like we passed over that area. and then from London all the way to Tel Aviv, Israel. So I remember just like being on the bus, and I'm like, wow, I feel like the world's just suddenly going to end. What is happening?
You're like, is this what the future feels like?
I was gonna say, I had never felt something like that before, as well as like that panicky paranoia, like heat going up your neck, and like your vision is just going black. It was never an experience I want again. Let me tell you.
That's very bizarre. Yeah. I've literally the biggest time zone change that I've ever done is 1 hour, and it's going from either here to California or going from here to the Missouri, Illinois area.
Mm-hmm.
And so I won't really be able to fully experientially understand a jet lag problem for probably another 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
But even just conceptualizing it in my head, like I was getting a headache thinking about the time zone difference when my good friend Variant, who I can't obviously say his actual name on here, when he traveled to Italy, and he was telling us when his flight was going to leave, and we were trying to translate what he was saying for his time zone back to our time zone, and then being like, all right, if he leaves at this time, our time zone, it will be that time, his time zone, and then he has to travel all the way back here, but that takes him 14 hours. But by that point, then it will be 14 hours for them, then translated back into our time zone. I was like, no, this shit is too confusing. And so I cannot wait for when that happens, because I am gonna die.
I must say, I can't wait to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, because like
in the most I hope you suffer way, but
it'll just it's interesting to see, because like I didn't know paranoia was a thing that could come out of jet lag.
I don't either.
But you know,
I was literally panicking, so our bus thankfully had Wi-Fi, and I'm like, rare but horrible symptoms of jet lag. Heavy, mild and heavy paranoia, anxiety, and dread. I'm like, that's terrific. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, now that's I need a psychologist on here to explain to me how the hell that makes sense. How do you go through a time zone change and you're like, the world is ending?
I don't know. And I was literally enjoying my time up until that second. I'm like, wow, that tree's really pretty. World's ending. Cool.
Yeah, it's like wow, hold on. This environment that I'm in is very pretty and the culture seems very rich. Where am I?
Death.
Who am I? Death. Death is near.
Death is coming. Wow.
Yeah, but I guess the closest, like, all of that said is like I still communicate with people who, like when Dakota was in Japan, I had to remember the fact that he was like 14 hours ahead, I think, of us.
Yeah.
And like I have clients who I work with at my job who like, so there's a company that I work with where they have a US based customer service team that is in what I can only assume is probably like Central Standard Time, probably. Then they have another customer service team who lives in the Philippines, and I don't even know what the hours conversions are there. The main guy who I talk to is in Australia, which is 16 hours ahead, and then the head of their company is in the United Arab Emirates. He lives in Dubai. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And so, yeah, that's, there was that, dealing with Dakota being 14 hours ahead, dealing with Variant being like 9 to 14 hours ahead. Now understanding that you were also like 14 to 16 hours ahead, and I'm just like, I'm like,
everything hurts. Make it stop.
Yeah, it's too confusing for me to understand. So I'm like, if I pull up to whatever country I go to and I feel feelings of dread, I'm going to go take a nap until they go away.
Yeah. No, I tried doing that, but there was just, like when you turn your car on and all the lights shine for a second?
Yes.
Like battery, everything that you're
all of the error signs. Yeah.
All of them were flashing at once, and then my ears started ringing. I'm like, this is the absolute end. Goodbye.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to drink some Sprite. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to take one Advil. and then whatever happens to me at that point, I'm like, I'm just going to let it slide. Because I have to go to that cat island in Japan.
Absolutely.
So I have to let the dread subside.
Walk it off.
So, yeah.
Also, that's actually something me and him talked about, was we both had so many stray cats.
Yes.
Around us.
Hell yes.
Dude, I cannot tell you. I was seconds away from grabbing this beautiful little tabby. I mean, this thing, oh gosh, she was so pretty. And of course, I was worrying. I'm like, okay, I don't want, if they have fleas, if they have different like parasites, I don't want to bring that to the hotel with me if I pet them. But then she came up to me and I'm like, oh, no, I don't care anymore.
I
You can
have no
bite me.
choice.
I have no choice. And so she had like a little nick in her ear. She had a fresh like wound on her like upper temple. I'm like, I want to take you home. Oh my gosh, please. How can I get you on the plane without them knowing?
You're like, can I
Obviously,
add another checked bag and have it be
I
the cat?
was so close to. She was so sweet, and even like the restaurant person who like tries to take care of her and feed her because she would visit there often, saw the
Yeah.
connection, and he felt bad. He's just kind of like, she usually doesn't like come up to random people like that, and I'm just like, you can't say things like that to me. That's only making
That
me want
shit's
to
not
kidnap her more.
fair. Yeah,
And
that's one thing that
this
I've
is
really
all not even
noticed.
talking about the Grecian cruise that I went to.
Oh yeah, God, we didn't even get into that. How much time do we have?
I have no idea.
I guess this is on my schedule technically. We're an hour and 20 minutes in.
Good God.
But no,
But yeah,
that's one thing that I've really noticed is like a lot of international countries also just have cats just kind of roaming all over the place. They're just chilling. Or you know what it is? No, I think it's like a lot of countries that put a lot of focus into making their streets pedestrian friendly and
Yeah.
minimizing the necessity for a vehicle. I think
Oh,
probably breeds a lot of the ability for cats to be walking around everywhere. Because like this is
yeah.
kind of fucked up, but this is the reality of it. I have to take a highway into a road that is not a highway, but people drive highway speeds on it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there are a lot of dead animals on those roads. Like there's
Yeah.
been cats. I saw a bird on my way home. There's been mice. There was a fucking deer once, and I'm like, how did you even? How did that happen?
What the hell are you? Adam
Um,
Sandler? What are you doing here?
Yeah, and so that's where I'm at. But from what I can tell, countries that have high priority over making the streets pedestrian friendly usually also have more animals just walking around chilling. Probably because they are not dead.
Yeah. I have two pictures to show you just because in Israel, they, like American style things are very loosely translated. If I could put it into.
Oh, yes.
Mhm. If I can put it into perspective, it's kind of like when we randomly just buy some random Japanese shirt and we don't know what it says, but it looks pretty. It is the same thing there. I saw a bucket hat that had weed on it, and so I was just curious. I'm like, hey, what is this? And the shopkeeper was like, oh, it's a palm tree hat, and I just cried. I just like, I need you to understand. I know it's different here. This is cannabis. This is not a palm tree.
This is not a palm tree.
The light died in her eyes. I felt so bad.
Yeah, this sounds ignorant as shit, but do they like know what cannabis is?
Yes, yeah. There are places, especially in Greece. Especially there's like cannabis stands in Greece. In fact, THC in a lot of places is illegal, and so what they did were just like, oh, cool. Fuck you. We're gonna make HHC.
What the hell is that?
I had to look it up for if hopefully I remember this fucking correctly. HHC is one of the strongest sativa strains. It is like a brand new, like the strongest shit you can imagine strain of cannabis, and they just sell it right when you get off the boat. And I was seconds away from getting gummies just to piss off my mother.
Yeah, just casually, you're like, are these allowed on the plane?
Like,
And then they're like, no. But
God.
no, what I thought you were gonna say is there's this idea that if you like say because okay, this is the actual last question that I think I have because I think we're gonna have to save the Grecian trip for our conversation after the fact. Because
You're all good. I sent you a picture of a T-shirt I found that I really wanted context to.
Super Jew,
Super.
Super Jew. Oh wait, hold on. Didn't you post this Mario like shawarma stand looking thing on Instagram?
It's Mario Shawarma. And
Mario
the
shawarma.
way they have it constructed is that air goes through the hand, so the hand just goes like this. It just waves at you.
He's just waving.
It is
The wacky waving inflatable arm waving tube man.
the Hebrew Mario waving inflatable monstrosity.
I
And then
love
of
this
course
so much.
Super Jew.
Super Jew. No, what I was going to say is like, there's a lot of things where you will. So there was the podcast that I keep referencing. So there was a guy who was talking about how there was a person on TikTok who, no, what was he talking about? So he said that he bought like maple syrup or something, but it was from a Chinese company.
Yeah.
And he said that it was a maple flavored pancake syrup from China, and it tasted like what Chinese people would assume maple syrup tastes like if you were to throw the concept of maple syrup through Google Translate 5 or 6 times.
Yep.
And there's like an infinite amount of things that exist like that in America in like an international grocery store aisle where we heavily misrepresent the idea of what, say, a Japanese or a Chinese or a Korean snack is like.
Yeah.
So, like, this is a question that I actually have. I guess I can just say it now. This is a question that I have for Dakota, kind of, when he comes on here, because it's going to happen whether or not you want it to, because I told him and he said yes. I don't know why I had to specify it like that. But I'm
So why do you
wondering,
think
like,
I have a problem with it? I know he's gonna have like 10 times the amount of shit I have to say.
yeah, because he's been there for he was there for a month. Anywho.
Two, from my understanding, yeah.
Oh yeah, he was there for 2 months. That makes it even, yeah. But no, like, so what kinds of things did you run into there that were kind of that similar vibe? Not really including, cannabis being mistaken for a palm tree on a hat.
I found it really funny. So what Israel likes to do is that kind of what Japan does as well. They'll take two random American words that they think sound really cool and just mash it together, and then boom,
into
you have
one
score.
word.
Yeah. If I can think of one, I think I saw Spicy Girl. And it was a clothing store, or the Tickled Irishman, which was their version of a pub, an Irish pub. Gosh, there was one I took a picture of. Oh, crap, that's what it is. There was two off-brand Starbucks. One was Square Bucks.
Yes, hell yeah.
There was one called Square Bucks, and I'm pretty sure I took a picture of it. I don't know why I didn't post it. I was dying with laughter, but it's things like that where you're just like, that's not right. Or Bozo, the music cafe, Bozo Cafe.
Yeah.
That one was hilarious. They have their own version of Antifa.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Send that to you. I'm not quite sure they knew, just because the poster that they had was very questionable in terms of like what their message was trying to get to, because obviously it's a conversational starter, to say the least, here in the States.
What in
but yeah,
the
I sent
shit?
That
I'm trying to zoom in on this and figure out what I'm looking at. Is this a concert?
I don't know.
I think this is like an event because it says hip hop live after. Square Bucks.
It was things like that. And then, oh yeah, one was Fat Oyster. It was a shoe store.
What the fuck? Okay.
Yeah, again, two random English words just mashed together. There was also McDonald's on every corner.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, because they have 45,000 locations across the world.
Not only that, they had I know Dakota had the same burger, like the shawarma burger, and then like soy sauce burger. We had the same thing that Japan was serving.
That's okay. That's weird.
It's fucking odd.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'd be incredibly interested to try, because like I know the whole joke is like when you can't read any of the signs at an international place and you don't know what to get, and then it's just like finding a McDonald's. But I am genuinely interested in going there and seeing what different derivations they have there, because like 6 years ago when I was working at a Chinese restaurant, there was a guy who was telling me how he went to a McDonald's in either Japan or China that had like it was like a squid ink burger something or other, and I don't know if there was actual squid in that, because probably not. But it's like seeing what kinds of weird things a different country comes up with as a result of the resources that are around them to add that to a McDonald's menu. Like,
oh yeah, again, speaking on that, I just found another picture. There was, just like every other country has its own civil wars.
This is a weird turn to
They
take, but all right.
Well, they did as well, and several walls, like territory blocking walls, were erected, and the people got really creative. What they spray painted on the wall, and the reason I bring this up is because there was Disney characters. I saw Darth Vader just spray painted on the wall, and
Hell yeah.
I can take a picture. There's so many of American icon and cartoons that were just on plastered on this wall.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so they. What is. Hold on. Is that. I'm assuming that's in a different language. No, that is actually. Bert Morty, welcome to Palestine. You gotta have. You gotta. We gotta solve the burn. We gotta solve the burn. The BUR something hold in the middle of a crisis or something. I can't really tell
Yep.
what that says.
It was literally just them spray painting in English on the Palestinian side about what was going on during their civil war, and I'm like, this is morbidly interesting.
Yeah, it's like I mean, this is basically just like punk culture, but in Palestine and Israel.
In Palestine, yeah. And then you just have the random word Nike on it.
Yeah, you know. Shouts out to Nike for
Shouts
that
out
one.
to Nike. I want shoes.
Yeah,
No, actually, no, give them shoes.
but yeah, that's cool. As a person who's not into punk music, punk culture and its different effects on and how and like well yeah I don't like punk music. I like punk culture and how punk culture evolves and develops depending on the country that it is surrounded in, especially in terms of their fashion style, because like I'm a really big fan of like Japanese streetwear because I think that shit is the hardest shit
It's
I've ever
so
seen,
cool.
but I have no idea how punk culture affects the Israelites and the Palestinians other
Yeah.
than them spray painting Morty on the Palestinian side of the wall. Like,
Man, depression affects us all in different ways.
yeah, the mental illness has to flourish somewhere, right?
Comes in many
You know?
forms.
But yeah, I think let's see. Let me go down. Oh wait, this is Dakota's document. I was like, what is your biggest cultural difference in Japan? I'm like, they didn't go to Japan. Let me see. Boom, answered that one. Good. Okay, yeah, I guess this is just the last thing. Just one thing. What was your one favorite thing and your one least favorite thing from the entirety of the trip?
My least favorite thing, obviously, was getting so sick that I wish I was joking, and I mean this not in like an attention-seeking way. I was absolutely paralyzed in my bed. Like any movement sent fire down my chest. It's like I had a nerve disease or something. I was burning up from the inside out. I could not drink. I could not eat. None of it. That was the least favorite part of my trip, and it had like nothing to do with culture. It had nothing to do with that.
He was like, I got fucked up.
I got horribly fucked up. Any like negative takeaway was probably just getting approached a lot by very lustful men, which I knew was gonna happen anyways because of my size, yada yada yada. But I had already kind of like mentally prepared for that. I was kind of ready for that and I knew how to handle it.
Yeah.
So it did not bother me as much as it would have if I did not know what to do in the scenario. The most positive thing was the fact that the places that I went to did like they were not, I don't want to say like PC. They did not care if you were offended by what they had to say. It's kind of like, this is our lifestyle, like it or not. You guys are Christians, we're Jews. We do not have to believe the same thing. We do not have to live the same way. We will treat you as a human, though, if you do the same thing to us.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed having kind of like that mindset no matter where I go, of just a newfound respect for how these people lived, what their history was, because, American school systems don't teach us anything about what goes on in another country, and you can't believe anything you see on TV. This person instigated this, country shot first. Almost none of that's true half the time. And I was able to actually see some of that in the places of Israel that were extremely impoverished. I mean, you heard from the locals that told you, no, so-and-so shot first, or this country came in, like physically came in to Israel and attacked. They're just horrible war stories. It's really sad. So as morbid as that is, I loved, I'm an archaeology nerd. I just loved seeing how people used to live and how that culture built upon it generation after generation after generation to where we are now.
Yeah. I mean, as I'm not into archaeology, but I do respect the concept of like seeing how human to human interactions have caused the landscape, especially to exist the way that it does now and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, I got to see an entire sunken Roman city. I actually
yeah,
got to find
just in an
out.
afternoon.
Yeah, just in an afternoon. I actually got to find out that's where I found the, saying of "shop till you drop."
No.
Oh, well,
No.
it's a very white saying. Um,
Yeah, I don't I grew up around black people a lot when I was younger. That's probably why I don't know about it.
no, there's a saying that we use in the U.S. called "shop till you drop," and that actually came from. It's called the agora or marketplace of this like Roman Greek city. When the women and children were out shopping while the men did their business off away, fishing, etc., the manly man stuff. There was a really terrible earthquake and it killed about 500 people, women and children, only women and children in that marketplace. So that's where the shop till you drop dead came from. Very morbid, but I learned things like that. It's like, oh, and yet this culture can just continue to live. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, they're fine. They're chilling. They're like, it
Let
happens. We'll do better
them get
next
up.
time.
Let them get up.
Yeah. But no, the other thing I was going to say is in regards to the whole, like, this is like, I don't care if you're offended by a thing that I'm saying. It reminds me of this bodybuilder guy who he's not a bodybuilder. He's just like he's like a fitness coach trainer, but he's like different because he doesn't just try and like force nonsense BS down your throat. But he made a joke where he was like, he's like, if you do this, what did he say? He said something about like you'll lose fat faster than all the people coming into my comments telling me that. Or no, sorry, let me try again. So he said this might be my last video before I get banned because a lot of people keep telling me to stop saying the C word. Which one? No, I'm not gonna. Was it the C word? Was it the F word? Shit, I'm forgetting the punchline now. He basically said like all these people are coming into my comments telling me to stop cursing all the time. Which one? Fuck no, and two, you are about 500 videos too late. Because he's also like Irish, so like.
Oh yeah, it's like a second word for him.
Yeah, that's like a thing.
That's their culture, though.
Yeah, and that's like a lot of this. That's like a lot of the jokes that he makes. He makes jokes at the expense of people who tell him to stop swearing. He's like, "Do you know who I am? Like, do you know?
You know what I am?
Can you hear my accent? Like, are you kidding me?" So that's just what that reminded me of, and I think that's funny.
Yeah.
Like they're very accepting of people, but they're very not accepting of non-accepting people. They're intolerant of the intolerant.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's officially every question that I have. So if there's any last things that you want to say before I have to riff for a long time, feel free to spew.
There is one thing that I absolutely lost my shit at. When I got off the cruise boat at Mykonos, at almost every gift store, just because the Greeks and Romans are very proud of their genitalia, you will find a wooden phallic object in every store. And I almost got one for like everyone here in Colorado.
Shouts out to the dick statues.
So they're dick statues.
Yeah, dick statues.
And also dick-shaped soap. I really wanted to buy the dick-shaped soap just because it also smelled very good.
Yeah, but I feel like to a certain degree you have to like there's got to be some humanity in you where you're like, I'm not smelling the dick soap. Like that would look very incriminating.
No,
like,
I just gave it to one of the people in our group and I had them do it. They were kind of like the test dummy. So,
did they not realize it was dick shaped?
Yeah, if any of you want phallic shaped anything, go to Greece. They have a lot.
Greece
they have
and
the
Italy.
Evil eye on some.
Well, I actually don't know if I don't know if Italy has dick-shaped things. They have a lot of dicks carved into their architecture, though.
That is fair. Yeah, no. This is like dick souvenirs.
Dickineers. Yeah, that's where we're going to end it off is with the dick souvenirs. So on that note, everybody who stopped by, why am I saying everybody who stopped by? It's like, this is on an individual basis. I'm not talking to a bunch of people. But no, thank you for stopping by and listening to this episode of Eye for Talent. It was a good time. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I can say one last thing, actually. I was like pressed for time because I didn't have anybody on my schedule this week.
Yeah.
and usually I like being 1 week ahead on these kinds of things. So I was behind schedule, and I was like, hold on, who's somebody interesting that I can talk to that I know has time? And then I remembered a TikTok video that I made that was talking about how, like, I'll talk to people who visited foreign countries. I was mainly referring to Dakota at the time. And I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Somebody else went to a foreign country recently. And so that's why we're here.
Ta-da.
So, yeah. So I appreciate you coming on here and taking the time with me. Thank God that you were as free as you were, because I was like, I have to have this up by Thursday. And if you're not free this week, I am going to be devastated.
No, I got you. But I say, sorry if it's like very repetitive, but the trip was very repetitive.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how it goes, So there's a chance that you may end up hearing more references to these in future episodes, just as I relate them, especially to international travel when our good friend Dakota comes on later down the series, and as I get to understand more about what's going on here, because there's definitely some stories in here that we didn't have time for because I was dumb and didn't pace myself properly. So that's where we're at. If you want to see more of this, you can like scroll, and like most podcast platforms have the ability to just like let you click onto the next one or a previous one. Check out last week's episode with Spooky Shine. We talked about a lot of mental health stuff, and given that we're both dudes who have a heavy focus on mental health, we have a lot of outstanding opinions. At least I think so. So go check that out. I'm part of a team of people called Nothing Is Anything. A bunch of us have Twitch channels. We have a YouTube channel. We have a couple of things. Check out our last episode of the podcast, in which what did we talk about? I don't remember. Go listen to the last episode. Go look at all of those links. And what's something funny I can say about Israel? I've run out of Jewish jokes. I give up.